Thursday, April 24th, 2025. Dr. Paul's Man Cave, Lancaster, South Carolina, 29720. In the simplest terms, you see us as two complete and utter morons that know entirely too much about movies, but not enough to claim to be an authority. I apologize in advance. Welcome back to Rotten Potatoes. This episode is all about The Breakfast Club.
Are you a boomer? Are you a millennial? Are you a Gen Z? I mean, whatever age group you're at, this represents the best youth film ever made. You will see yourself in this.
This film was copied from any movie that had high school students in it for the next 25 years. Used this film as an archetype.
It is.
Bottom line.
It is.
Special guest.
Yeah.
David Cronenberg's The Fly.
No, this movie is absolute. John Hughes.
Who are you?
Who are you?
Who are you?
I'm Dr. Paul.
I'm Diet Dr. Paul. You forgot this part.
We are just not ready. See, we filmed this before, but the sound was off.
His sound was off.
Yeah.
I think the microphone committed. The microphone committed. You know what? Aside.
Yeah.
Can't say that word on YouTube.
And it was the first 10 minutes. So I have no idea what I said in that first 10 minutes.
Yeah.
I
we
said,
apologize if you'll notice that we're wearing something different later in the video. It's because someone screwed up the audio for half of it, so we had to refilm it. The world's tiniest violin, right? But anyway, Breakfast Club.
Yes. This is an amazing film. The best film that exemplifies what it's like to be in high school for any generation. If I'm telling you, whatever generation you are, you will see it, because it's about cliques. Cliques still exist, right?
Mm-hmm.
All through school.
They're a little different now, obviously.
Yeah, obviously. And this is essentially 5 kids, very different kids. What are their roles?
There is the princess, the brain, the athlete, the basket case, and the criminal.
Yes.
And what they find out along the way is that they...
Spoiler alert.
...are all of the above. We are all 5 in one way or another.
I am you, and you are me, and we are all in together, and I am the walrus.
Cuckoo Cachoo.
John Hughes, director. This is a guy that has a repertoire of film. He's a boomer.
Yeah, you're old enough, so why don't you tell us why he's important?
He's a boomer, but he was sort of a late boomer, and he's...
Did you do that on purpose?
No.
No, he's good. He's a late.
Not bloomer.
Yeah, I get it.
Boomer.
Yeah.
He is a late age boomer. Like my wife is considered a boomer, but so he grew up more connected to the generation behind him than his own generation. And he's written that the boomers just sort of occupied everything, all the attention, and we were losing sight of this generation that's the Breakfast Club is all about. And so his films really are all about, whether it's Pretty in Pink or 16 Candles. He wrote Home Alone. He wrote National Lampoon's Vacation, which he got his start at National Lampoon, which was a humor magazine for boomers. We started when we were younger, Mad Magazine, and we grew up into sort of the R-rated, which was, the National Lampoon. The beautiful thing about this is a perfect alignment of the planets, because he got the permission to do 2 films, Breakfast Club and
Pretty in Pink or Sweet?
16 Candles. And so what he did was he did 16 Candles first. Mm-hmm. And I think that got a lot of his adolescent humor out. If you look at 16 Candles, there's there's stuff in there that's just really almost cartoonish.
Well, I think a young director also has to do too much. There's all these things that they want to do for a movie.
Yeah.
Get it out
much
of your system.
More restrained in this. And he made a serious movie about what it's like to be a young person in school, the challenges of that. And it's like we did, last episode we talked about Dawn of the Dead. And he said, well, it's not just a horror movie, it's about something. And this is not just a youth exploitation film. This is about something. How real it is for kids doesn't bode well for parents. And really, the universal theme in here is that parents don't understand their kids. I mean, there's a line in there that says, "When you grow up, your heart dies," kind of thing. So this is very poignant for him as a writer, and this really is as universal a film as you can get.
I think that the directors that are the most powerful or have the capacity for being the most powerful are directors that understand storytelling and therefore write their own stuff, which is why I think this is such an effective film. You talk about a perfect storm. I think this is a perfect encapsulation of that. All five actors were born to play the roles they played, down to the janitor and the principal, the time period that the movie takes place in, the location. It's suburban America. People can easily identify with it. The music is sort of like another, I don't know, dimension of this film that really adds to it. And yes, it's a little, there's the cheesy 80s dancing, but that's part of the charm of this film, even from a contemporary viewpoint. So it is this perfect storm of things that rarely happens. And when it does, you got to recognize how special it is. And I think we've been doing that as a film society. You think about Dogma. There's the whole scene in the coffee shop there where they're talking about there is no Shermer, Illinois, and this tubby fat guy breaks down in tears every time we watch 16 Candles. And then there's Not Another Teen Movie where they spoof the scene with Bender, and he's like, yeah, so yeah, it's just you don't spoof a film unless it is impactful, because it has to be, people have to have the capacity to even understand what it is to identify with your movie, and if they don't, then your movie's a waste. So to even use that just shows how important this movie is.
Yeah. I think you said before, and I don't know if it's coming later, but you said this was 12 Angry Men.
Yes.
And essentially, it really is very heavy in dialogue and realistic dialogue. I think sometimes it's hard. It's hard to write. If you're a man, it's hard to write as a woman voice. If you are straight, it's hard to write, in a gay voice. If you're black, to write in a white voice,
Authentically.
Yes, and youth are especially difficult.
That's why I always say write what you know.
Yes,
because then it will seem unauthentic.
Yeah, but this does seem to have a realistic youth voice to it. The dialogue in it is very witty and
it's
very
crisp too.
Yes, and the thing is, and we've said that you have these five characters, but they're all, even though they're not cartoonish. It's not like the smart kid is just a smart kid, because he also has a real heart. You talk about the criminal who is obviously he's the kid that takes shop class, and he's but he is probably his dialogue and his vocabulary in that, how quick-witted he is.
He's understanding of the world.
Not just a criminal, a delinquent. He's also incredibly bright, kind of stuff.
Which is what I'm saying. We learn that they're all a piece of each of them. It's just what their perception from the click angle and how that goes.
Yeah.
And usually, here's another part of this film, and again, when we talk about John Hughes being such a good director, is the cinematography. A lot of times with films like this, it's very just basic. We're going to standard frame these shots. We're not going to get anything that's powerful. And in particular, the beginning and ending sequences of the film, where it's just shots of this school. And I don't know, they're just powerful because you imagine what happens. It really helps, I think, those scenes in particular, why they work so well, is that it helps really draw you in. Because immediately, I don't know about you, but I start thinking about my high school life and like, oh, the football games or this, that, or the other. And I guarantee you other people are thinking the same way. And you have that effect with a scene that has no dialogue, no moving cameras. It's just still shots. I think that takes...
Well, there is a little bit of moving camera work, and there's one place in particular that stands out to me. In the library, which is where this whole thing takes place, most of the film takes place in the library, there is a sort of a modern art sculpture kind of stuff. And the high point of the film, when they're really all sitting around and they're really getting to know each other, and they're calling each other on their crap, and they're finding out what happened. How did they wind up in a detention all day long? It's very interesting. They're talking, but the camera is moving around that sculpture. And I've thought about, well, that's an interesting director's choice. And
absolutely,
it gives the impression to me we're eavesdropping on these kids. It made it more real instead of just framing them all there as you're moving, and then you see around the corner of the sculpture and they're talking. It just felt like, man, this is an intense emotional exchange, and I'm overhearing this. To
I
make it more
think
real.
you're absolutely right. Now you think about it, like
Of course.
the last scene where you see where they're laughing about him and the flare gun, Charlie Sheen, Ali Sheedy, Anthony Michael Hall, and then you have Bender and Princess here, and we start from so far back, but the camera's just this slow pan forward, almost like we're getting closer. We're having to listen a little harder and a little harder, and it's the Ken Burns effect, is what that is. If I know everybody on Earth has seen this. Have you ever watched a History Channel documentary from the 90s where they don't have footage? It's just an hour of pictures with a slow zoom in it.
Yeah.
But for whatever reason, that minimalist movement really captivates the audience. And it does make you feel like you're doing this. Like you're slowly leaning forward and listening to them. And yeah, I didn't notice that before.
Think about boomers or millennials
Late
or
bloomers.
Gen Z or Alpha. When someone hasn't seen this movie, why do you think? Why not? Why would a millennial not watch this?
Because it's from the 80s. It is a very white movie, and I don't like to get into like politics when it comes to film. I like to get into story, but I could see how that could be a turnoff for someone of a different race or different ethnicity, or that's younger, because they just see 5 white kids, in a gym that look nothing like them, that act nothing like them. But I think if you actually were to sit down and watch the film and really sort of just turn that off for a second and see the movie, I think when you come out of it, you'd understand exactly what the movie's trying to say in the same exact way that me or you or someone that maybe even older or younger does as well.
There's an essay. It's interesting you say this. There's an essay that comes in the Criterion Collection, and it talked about John Singleton, who was the director of Boys in the Hood.
Okay.
That John Singleton saw, that was sort of his generation. He saw The Breakfast Club, and it absolutely floored him. He says, even though it was 5 white kids and it was clearly very suburban kind of stuff.
Very, very
Yes.
middle class.
Yes. And even the delinquent kind of stuff, you can see, look at, his,
Earring and
I don't think this kid was, standing on a street corner, will work for food kind of stuff.
no.
But Singleton said that even though there's a different racial and socioeconomic difference, the values and the challenges and the cliques was exactly the same thing. And that there's observations that Boys in the Hood borrowed significantly from The Breakfast Club.
That's an interesting way to put it, if you like connecting the two.
Mm-hmm.
It's been a long time since I've seen Boys in the Hood, but I mean, I liked it. I need to go back and watch it then.
Yeah. So go ahead.
Before we get, I think
we are way into 10 minutes.
But hey, it's a good thing. Before we jump into the breakdown, let's get some fun factage.
Ooh,
shall we?
Factage?
Yes.
You're such a late boomer.
Breakfast Club, made in 1985, released February 15th, 1985, before I was born, about a year. Hour and 37 minutes long. It is a 7.8 out of 10 on IMDb and 87%, 92% on Rotten Tomatoes. What is wrong with that percentage?
Yeah.
People? Like, come on now. But directed, written, John Hughes, starring Emilio Estevez as Andrew Clark, the athlete, Judd Nelson as John Bender, the criminal, Molly Ringwald as Claire Standish, the princess, Ali Sheedy as Allison Reynolds, the basket case, and Anthony Michael Hall as Brian Johnson, the brain. It was a $1 million budget and made $48.5 million in worldwide sales. And here's my fun fact that will blow your mind. Will re-blow your mind, because you've already heard this. It never won an award except one award, a 2005 Silver Bucket of Excellence Award at MTV in honor of its 25-year anniversary, which is a shame.
There are some films that's a classic film, Wizard of Oz, Citizen Kane kind of stuff, that we look at these now and think, man, these are just the pinnacle of film. But when they came out, And I think that might have been for this as well. Another little fun fact that I'm probably going to mention again in this, but Hughes shot over 1 million feet of film. So there's a lot of this that was where he just got these kids together and they talked. There's certain lines that they attribute that just came up during those improvisational sessions.
I meant to say that when you were talking about the dialogue.
When the Anthony Michael Hall says, "But what do you need a fake ID for?" So I could vote. I mean, that was improv kind of stuff.
I think that you mentioned that, and I wanted to say that when you were talking about dialogue. I think that's why it's so sharp, is because I think he had an idea what he wanted to say, and I think he really these are young actors,
Yeah.
but when you look around the table, there's a lot of experience for that age group in them. And so I think he had the leash to give them to let them do their thing. And you can see, I think Anthony Michael Hall is really the standout in this film, but they all bring just a something to the table. So to me, it's like the Ninja Turtles. Like, how do you have a favorite Ninja Turtle when it all boils down to it? Yeah, everybody's least favorite is Donatello, but who's your favorite? It's hard to say.
Stay tuned for our next episode. Who is your favorite Ninja Turtle?
Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2, Secret of the Ooze.
Secret of the Ooze. Ice Ice Baby.
That's my favorite.
All
right. That's it.
Do you think I've already talked about archetypes?
Archetypes. What do you mean?
That archetypes, how you an arc, and this is a group archetype.
Say it again, just in case.
All right. The interesting thing about this films is typically you'll have an archetype. And what that essentially is where you see a character begins here, but because of whatever happens, challenges, outside forces, inside forces, they wind up here, right? Michael Corleone, he starts here,
yes.
He winds up to be the Godfather kind of stuff. What's fascinating about The Breakfast Club is it is a group archetype. They start out here, but at the end, they are different. They, as a group, they're different. In fact, a lot of the challenges that they talk about is the changes that they've just seen, will those last when they get into the regular school day?
And that's why I say maybe they are not different people. At the end, I think maybe the better way for me to frame it in my brain is that they're the same people they were when they got there. They just realize who they actually are.
Right.
And that they're not these solitary, single-use characters. They're much, much more. And now that they understand that, they act a little differently. Maybe that's the way I see it.
Yeah.
And I don't know, maybe if I'm just stupid.
No. Well, don't sell yourself short. Harumph. I didn't get a harumph out of this guy.
Harumph.
What are you going to tell me about the opening scene?
Well, I love the opening scene. Obviously, it reminds me of Memento because it starts with the ending of the film. But I absolutely love this because the characters in this film are so strongly fleshed out and the actors are so like in tune with their characters that we find out everything we need to know about these characters within 15 seconds of their car ride and their drop off at school.
Right. You got the 5 roles that we said earlier, the prom queen,
And what are the 5 roles?
The prom queen, the athlete, the smart kid, the basket case, and the criminal.
They call the smart kid the brain.
The brain.
You've got to be precise when we're in here proctologizing, okay? And I like this first quote, the David Bowie quote, and these children that you spit on as they try to change their worlds are immune to your consultations. They're quite aware of what they're going through.
Yeah.
I think it reminds me of Ali Sheedy's character quite a bit.
It's all about youth in here. This is not this movie is not a friend to parents or to authority figures or teachers.
Absolutely.
Probably the most sympathetic character in here is the janitor.
Saturday,
yeah.
March 24th.
Without a shadow of a doubt. But even he, like, for some reason, feels shady. I don't know. And you pointed this out too. It begins with the voiceover of Anthony Michael Hall in, but it's the paper that they've written. That ain't a 1,000-word essay at the end, and I want to almost Google the essay to count the words.
Yeah.
And we also we see the reason for these kids being there based on this intro too. You see the locker, things like that.
I read that John Hughes did about 1 million feet of film for this. He just let things, so a lot of improvisation kind of stuff, them sort of fleshing out who they were and the interactions between kids. So.
You can tell that quite a bit because the way that they cut these scenes, so you can tell a lot of it is like off the cuff, but you wonder how they got so many of those scenes and how they got them so like precisely to work together. And we have our first shot of the princess. And now you may miss here at the beginning, but her reason for being in detention is she skips school.
To go shopping.
And her dad doesn't seem to care. It's just a little shopping, Claire.
It's so absurd I have to be on Saturday.
But what we find out from her is that she's popular, she's pretty, she comes from wealth, and she can pretty much get away with what she wants based on her father's sort of like, here's a present, dear, you're going to detention for this. Here's your gift.
Yeah. Most of John Hughes' films were filmed in the Chicago area, in Illinois.
Shermer, Illinois. And which reminds me of Dogma. There is no Sherman, Illinois.
We're not supposed to study. We just have to sit there and do nothing.
Well, mister, you figure out a way to study.
Who do you think is the best actor among the youth?
Yeah, we went back and forth on this. I think as a whole, it has to be Anthony Michael Hall.
I agree.
He's got the toughest role, but there were some scenes with Emilio Estevez in it where he just steals the thunder. When he's explaining his reason for being there and going over his dad's relationship, that makes me want to cry. And I'm like, I've never had that like win-win-win kind of situation to deal with. But you could just feel the pain in him. And I wonder if he's not pulling from something in his own life with his father.
Do you think when you watch this movie that you tend to see yourself as how you were in high school? I know if they did it again today, there would still be cliques. They're probably going to be totally
It'd be a
different
little
cliques.
different, yeah.
But which of the five would you say was most like you when you were growing up?
Anthony Michael Hall. But I don't feel like that's a very remote, apt representation of who I am. But that's who like I see myself in the most. But I think that's the point is at the beginning of this movie, everyone is who am I? But what you're supposed to realize throughout this film is that we are everything.
That's right.
We're all of this.
Way to
above.
spoil the movie.
Turn it off now. We're done. The end. Shortest deep dive ever. And we have the beginning. This is the 12 Angry Men courtroom, the coolest library on planet Earth.
Judd Nelson, as he comes in, he takes a pad. You know, when I was in high school, I kind of did sort of the criminal thing. I stole notes to get people out of school, and I got my teacher's car keys and had a copy of the key made to the whole school.
Oh my goodness. You're freaking Judd Nelson over here, John Bender Jr.
I was the prom queen.
Yeah, you were the princess.
I agree. We stole the pads so we can send people to get people out of school.
Yeah, they're passes, hall passes. And one of the things that blew my mind the most with this rewatch here is when I was a kid, I would see his character, the principal's character. He just seems so old looking to me now. And now I look at him and I'm like, he's actually kind of a young guy. He's really not that old. I'm like, me and this dude, we could go hang out. I just want to slap myself in the face because, yeah, I'm getting old.
Yeah.
And there's all this pomp and circumstance with Judd Nelson's character too, where he's trying to seem cool and in control in this scene.
But even as the stereotypes for these five types, they all break that stereotype.
At some point in the film, they do.
He is a criminal, but he's really articulate. His vocabulary, his
smart.
ability, yeah, and you think, man,
He reads people very well.
Yeah.
Same thing with the Ali
Quick-witted.
Sheedy character is she's, the basket case. You just assume that she's crazy, cuckoo, and La La Land, but she's the most aware of them. I think she's sort of the wallflower. She realizes what's going on.
Yep. The smart kid really is kind of like the heart of the whole thing.
He's kind of stupid too. Well, he's book smart, but he's not street smart whatsoever.
Socially inept, doesn't realize how he's coming off.
So I don't want to get ahead of it. That's a later scene. Yeah. But there's you pull so much from just these first few minutes of this movie. We already know who these characters are just based off the wardrobe and watching them walk to school, which I don't think you can necessarily say that about a lot of films today.
Would you call this a comedy first or a drama first?
I would call it a black comedy. Or a dark comedy, whatever your terminology is for that.
That's just so racist.
Because it is a comedy, but I think it doesn't look at things through this slapstick nature. It's funny in a realistic sense. And I was like listing scenes throughout this movie that I thought were hysterical. And in particular, one of the first ones I have is the I Can Answer That scene with Anthony Michael Hall, where he's like, do you want to be back here? He's like, well, I can answer that, sir.
Yep.
It's like, it's a rhetorical question, man.
Right.
And he really drives a lot of that home as being that sort of comedic relief based on his physical acting. I mean, he doesn't require words. He doesn't require his dialogue. The jacket scene here, I mean, it's so well written. I wonder, you said he filmed how long? How many miles of film?
1 million feet.
1 million feet of film.
Yeah.
I wonder what nightmare that was like on the editing room floor.
Yeah. You're not going to be hungry for lunch. I've seen you before,
All right, what else do we got here?
What's up with the gloves with no fingers? I mean, was
I
that
think
a thing?
it's part of the wardrobe.
Was it part in the?
You tell me, man.
I'm a boomer.
You were alive in 1985. I wasn't.
That was like my 15-year reunion.
So we're like both on the opposite ends of this thing. Were clubs big when you were in school?
Doing it to get a rise out of you.
I was in clubs.
Well, there's the scene where they talk about clubs, the academic
What's
club.
a physics club do?
What's
Well,
a
we talk about physics.
Let's see. Let's see here. I'm gonna have a hard time just doing this because I just want to. It makes me want to watch the movie again.
It is a movie that it's kind of like we've said. It's like at the Shawshank Redemption.
That's what I was going to ask you.
effect.
Is it a Shawshank Redemption style film where, like, when this is on, it makes you want to watch
If
it?
you're flipping through stations and Shawshank's on, you got to watch it. I think so. And especially depending on certain scenes.
Yeah.
You know.
This is one of the scenes that really illustrates John Bender's like smarts because he's in charge of this whole scenario right here.
Yeah.
The unlocking of the door, pushing the principal into just letting the door be shut by basically ridiculing him here and telling him we're going to be fire codes and this and that and the other. Most kids wouldn't have the head on their shoulders to think it through that way. Most kids aren't that articulate, but yet he's the criminal.
Right, but we talk about how each one of them still breaks that stereotype. He's the tough guy, but there's a part of him I think it shows he's kind of a coward too. He's brave and he in one scene, but you know.
Well, yeah, I think that might be the next one. Let me see here. The next one is getting to know each other. But here, yeah, here's the fight scene between them is fairly quick. You see they basically get in a scuffle for all of 2 seconds and get to it. Where, you know, he's very lewd and crude.
And he's taller than
He's a big fella.
Yeah.
But from what I know about wrestling is he would get dumped on his head and turned over pretty quickly. What I will say is that some of the sensibility of these movies have changed, right? Talk about the sexual aspect of it. When he's under the table and he puts his face in Claire's underwear, that's sexual assault.
Right.
You go to jail for that
Right.
for a long time. What else is there? The gun in the locker.
Yeah.
If you did that today, you're going to jail, man.
Right.
But now he's at just detention for us, for the day.
And you're referring to the scene that the smart kid brings a gun to because he gets an F in a class and he just can't have that. I mean, there's a reason why every person is there.
Yeah, at the core of this film, that's really what the first part is why are they here and how are they going to change? Those are the two crux of this film.
Yeah.
And you find out that he put himself in shop class in order to make an easy A and ends up realizing that he's just not capable of making this elephant turn its light on, so he brings a gun to school.
Right.
Turns out it's a flare gun, but
Right. Which, there's humor in that. If this movie you made today, if you bring a gun to school today, you're not using it on yourself.
no,
Yeah.
And the fact that it was a flare gun too is hysterical.
Yeah. Yeah, so it is the sensibilities of this. The opening scene when you see the locker and these disparaging term for gay kids is on there. We obviously
Yeah,
wouldn't-
that's a
yeah.
hate crime
Yeah.
nowadays.
So
This
it
is-
is different.
This right here is probably one of my favorite scenes in the whole movie. Is the lunch scene. It's another way we're going to talk about who these people are without really saying any dialogue.
It says so much about
That's another thing that I found about this movie is while it is a dialogue-heavy film, there's a great number of important scenes in this that have very little dialogue, where it's just their facial, reactions to a scene and maybe a word or two here. And this is one of those scenes where we see Claire. She's got sushi and she's got the little thing to pour it out and the little box that it comes in. She's trendy, she's hip, she's money. And then next to her, we've got Wrestler Boy with a family-sized bag of chips,
a jock lunch.
3 sandwiches, a bag of what looks to be donuts, but they're cookies, a quart of milk, a soda. Oh yeah, and by the way, a banana.
Forgot
and an
this
apple.
too.
I couldn't eat all that in a day.
But it's a stereotype, wrestlers especially
calories.
You cut weight and then you gotta.
Yeah.
And she's just.
Yeah, and we were talking about this too. Are those pixie sticks or is that sugar?
It looks like sugar. I've never seen sugar like that.
If
but
you're
I
in the
think-
comments and you went into high school in the 80s or you know anything about, I don't know, plain pixie sticks.
Yeah. Pickle loaf. Boop.
And then Bender doesn't have a lunch because his parents don't care about him. And her lunch is clearly packed by herself because it's just the most random ingredients.
Well, it's bread with Captain Crunch and sugar sprinkled on top.
Something.
Yeah.
I don't think I could eat a single bite of that. And it looks like there's mayonnaise on it too. Now that I look at that,
You know, you're probably right. With a
mayonnaise sugars. So it's like this is like they're all such incredible actors.
But it's not cartoony.
No, it's
very
realistic.
realistic. Yeah.
And I think part of what makes it realistic is Ali Sheedy's portrayal. She does a really good job with like after dialogue, where
Right.
she does these facial tics,
Yeah.
or like it's like autism, sort of part of her spectrum, I guess.
Very difficult, with having so few lines to be.
Oh yeah, because you pointed out to me it's probably an hour into the film and she hadn't said a single word
But you
yet.
still know who she is and you still have a
Yeah,
feel for
to
her.
this point, she said no dialogue in the entire
Yeah.
film, and yet we know who she is.
Mm-hmm.
We know, we don't know why she's there yet.
Soup.
I can read.
And one of the more uncomfortable scenes is with the G Dad scene. I don't know why that one bothers me, because you can really see that it affects Anthony Michael Hall. He does a good job of making me feel bad for him.
Marry Mr. Rogers? No, Mr.
Yeah, I do kind of feel like his character is the heart of.
Heart and soul of the
Yeah.
film. All right. And this is, when we talk about the bad of film, this is one scene I wanted to ask about, is the when they break out and go to the locker to get his drugs. It doesn't make sense why they would follow him. They're not on the same page yet.
Right.
They're not. Actually, let me stop that before. So we didn't have the footage of the scene, but we miss a scene between the principal and Bender where he locks him in this closet basically for being a bit of a hassle. But right before that scene, we see him flip out, and it's the first real time where we get to see his real emotion. To the first 45 minutes of the film, John Bender's posturing.
Right.
He's playing the jock, or he's playing the criminal, tough guy. He's got to be a loose cannon. He's got to be a center of attention. If the room's quiet, I got to get him to do something. We really see him flip out in that moment, and it's one of the more engaging scenes in that film.
When you peel the onion and you find out what kind of his home life is like.
Yes, and you understand that he does want approval, he does care, and that really greatly bothers him.
Yeah.
I wanted to mention that.
It's also something that we didn't mention is when the principal, we both noticed at the same time, is he sighs at this one point when I think it's when he gets his standoff with Bender and it's just like
It's after he leaves him and locks him
he's
up.
escalating, getting all of these
Yes,
detentions.
yes.
And I think what I see is like that's not why he got into education.
Yes.
It's like this is not why I became a teacher or principal, and I know better. And I got to understand that I'm not connecting with these kids.
Yeah, well, because he asked that the whole thing with him
Yes.
and Carl and the janitor is, I hate these kids. They're getting crazier than they ever were before, and I just don't know what to do with them. He's like, no, man, you're different. You've changed. You're not there to be the great teacher that you once were, and that's that's the problem. It's not them, it's you.
Yeah.
What was that ruckus?
What kind of? Will you describe the ruckus, sir?
Office and I heard a ruckus.
You're not going to make a fool out of me.
Watch your tongue, young man. Watch it.
And I don't know why I never noticed that before.
What is this?
And this is where
What is that?
sort of the cult of teenage kicks in. To this point, they still don't like each other for the most part, yet they're covering
They're
for
protecting
Bender.
each other. It's
Why?
us versus them.
Exactly. And so you wonder, is the fact that they've been put in this detention situation, the entire reason why they galvanize together is because they're sort of put in a situation where it's us versus the principal.
And parents.
Yeah, and allows them to sort of, have some camaraderie and come together. Because without that, then what's the point?
Right.
You. I will not be made a fool of.
I will not be made a fool of, and too late. Is this where we get the sigh?
No. No, it was at the very, very beginning when he's thinking, you want another one?
Yes.
You want
okay,
another
okay.
one? Another detention? Another?
And this scene, they couldn't do this scene today.
No.
They would have to come up with something different, where maybe he touches her butt or something. But it's a very icky scene. It makes me feel icky.
This resonated with me. One of the reasons is as they go and they get high, and then they spend just time talking. And that's where they come out. Why were you here? What did you do to get in here? What's your home life and all this? And it was when I was growing up, I had two very close friends, and we used to have what we call GTs, group therapies. And we talked about the same kind of things that they're talking about, where we just, what's this? What do you think? What do you want to do when you grow up? What are you going to, how is it? And it really resonated with me that a lot of young people go to school not for reading, writing, math, science. They go for relationships, social relationships that in some cases they'll carry with them for the rest of their life.
Sue me.
What are we looking for now?
I just was finding a longer version of the scene that's up next, basically.
So Ahab.
Give me my dope.
Yeah, because this is the longest, and this is the most important scene in the entire film. Is because this is where they finally take their mask down. We learn why they're there, and we learn, again, an important crux of the situation is sort of this class system, and that's when we get. I don't want to get ahead of it. I want to get there slowly. All right, let me fast forward here to when they're finally up here. Okay. Not only is it an absolutely hysterical scene, because Anthony Michael Hall is just, women can't hold, they smoke. He's so funny.
They're clearly high.
Yes. But using this as the social lubricant, to get them out of their shell. But we find out why they're there. And eventually, Anthony Michael Hall is going to ask him a really important question. Are we still going to be friends on Monday?
Yep.
And they were kind of split at first, but what it boils down to is no, they're not going to be. And why are they not going to be friends on Monday?
Because of the cliques.
Because of the cliques. And it's not what they want. It's about peer pressure and how powerful that is for kids.
Right. So they need to have Breakfast Club with the entire school present.
That's just called school. And I think it's going to be much harder for every kid in school to smoke pot at once.
Well, and you had mentioned that it's kind of crazy to think that the principal couldn't walk into this.
Right. Again, and this is a different time period. In the 80s, teachers were probably smoking at school. Now, I'm not sure if they were lighting up in classroom, but so maybe you're not going to smell cigarette smoke, but marijuana smoke is different. It's got a distinct smell, and it lingers. It's going to linger. In a library setting, it's just a room full of smoke. How is the principal not going to walk out there?
Well, and the noise and the...
And of course, every
windows.
80s film needs an arbitrary dancing scene with crazy 80s dance.
Footloose.
Yeah, this reminds me so much of Footloose for some reason.
Well, we talked about this once, that the song that opens with this song and it closes with the song, Don't Forget About Me. This is one of those rare pop songs that has been completely co-opted. You can't listen to that song without thinking about Breakfast Club, and sometimes that happens in certain and you mentioned even with Maverick with Top Gun. Yeah.
Take my breath away.
You hear that, you think of that film. I mean, you can't separate the music from this. And if I were the band, I don't know if I'd feel good about that or not. But it really is. You hear it, you're taken to the movie.
I want to go back to this scene just for a second. The Bender scene, in terms of talking about the bad, and it doesn't make sense. Why are they running around the hallways? I know we skipped. It's my fault.
That's right.
We rewind, baby.
Are you gonna?
No. Well, we just hanging loose, baby boy.
We practice without a net here.
Yes. That's how Robin's family died.
We're dangerous, man. We're out of control. We can't be stopped.
First of all, he's gonna fall through that freaking ceiling the first hand he puts down. But why do they cover for Bender? Why are they in the hallway with him? He should, in this story, they don't want to get up out of their seats because they don't want to get in trouble. Yet they're going to follow him. All of them are going to follow him into the middle of the school.
Because he's not an adult. He's not a teacher.
It just seemed a little silly. And yeah, I don't know. It's one of the few points in the film that bothers me that I would give it a slight negative. But that's, at this point I'm kind of picking.
Yeah. Now this is just where they're all starting to connect with each other as kids, and there's still some pain and some tension in there.
The film does shift between lighthearted to drastic emotional scenes,
right
in the split of a second.
Yeah.
Totally blown.
You're a shit. Don't do that to her. Swear to God you wouldn't laugh.
Am I laughing?
You fucking prick.
Like that.
Yeah.
What do you care what I think anyway?
That's true. And this is another powerful scene where he goes back to what they say at the beginning of the film. Nobody cares about you. Nobody wants you here. Nobody gives a crap. We wish you were dead, or whatever,
Right.
however they phrase that. Which proves, which makes a good point. Why does he care? And I think the idea is that he does. We all care at that age.
Yeah. Well, and Claire's character says, it hurts just as much when somebody tramps on my feelings as it does when tramps on your feelings.
Mm-hmm. And that's the point too, is that what we're starting to realize in this scene is that they are a little bit of everything. This is where he asks them about on Monday, are you going to be friends or not? Which is the whole point of the film.
Yeah, I consider you guys my friends.
I would just like to hear your thoughts on this.
I'm not wrong, am I?
Well, that's why I say I think he's kind of like the emotional center of the film. He's honest. He
Heart and
feels
soul.
things, and I believe him when he says, "I wouldn't do that to you." That I would. Of course, he has less to lose
Exactly.
than the others do. It's like if and then she's saying, "Well, yeah, you'd say hi to him in the hall, and then when he turned around, you'd make fun of him," kind of stuff. And he's saying, "I wouldn't do that to you guys."
And as the resident psychologist in the group, the resident doctor in the group, why do you think peer pressure is so powerful and effective?
I think there's a thing is called individuation, adolescent individuation, where kids sort of learn, they define themselves not of who they are, but in opposition. You're not me. Don't tell me what to do. You grow up in a home that's overtly religious, then you reject religion. Think about you grow up in a home, vegetarian kind of stuff. It's like, no, I want meat, that kind of stuff. I think the same thing is true, is that in terms of peer pressure, is that they are individuating as an age cohort. It's really hard to stand up against that.
Why don't you take Allison to one of your head
And I
metal
also
office
think that
parties?
kids too, as a teacher, I see it. No one wants to be the kid picked on. So when one kid's getting a finger pointed at it, it's easy to know in that moment, okay, this side of the situation I can be in control, so I'm going to jump there immediately.
You don't plan the activity, you become the
You
activity.
become the activity, yeah. So if I'm not going to be the person getting picked on, so I'll do the picking on.
So you just stick to the things that you know.
Yeah.
Shopping, nail polish, your father's BMW, and your
And how old were they when this movie came out?
I don't know, because you look at them now, they just had a reunion for the first time in 40, I think it's a 40-year, and where
Judd was
they're
there.
all together, and Judd is not, and he doesn't have anything against him, he just said, it just never was something I wanted to do. So let me pull this up.
Because I think part of the reason why John Hughes movies work so well, and it's like the perfect storm. Him as a writer, a director, the timing, the music, but also these young people and their ability to act and be believable on screen.
Well, if you did.
That's the whole point, or that's what makes this thing roll, is that you really believe them.
The kind of friends I'd have with mine.
Emilio Estevez would be 23 when,
So they're still relatively young.
yeah.
I wouldn't, and I will not. Because I think that's real shitty.
Anthony Michael Howell was younger, he was born in
They're friends with
68.
mine because they look up to us.
You're so conceited, Clint.
Judd Nelson,
You're so conceited.
59.
You're so, like, full of yourself.
He was the
Why do you
youngest?
like that?
He was born in 59. I mean,
Wow, he was a lot older than the rest of
I'm
them.
gonna go along with everything my friends say.
You know
25,
why?
26 years old. He held that well. Molly Ringwald,
You don't understand.
68. Ali
You're not
Sheedy,
friends with the same kind of people
62.
that Annie and I are friends with.
So
Yeah.
yeah,
You just don't understand the pressure that
it's
they
the
put on
12
us.
Angry Men. If your acting's not on
understand
point, then
You think I don't understand pressure?
it's not going to
Chris?
hold up.
Well, and he was, Anthony Michael Hall was in
Fuck you.
16 Candles, and he was in,
Pretty in Pink.
well,
I think he
I
plays a
don't-
small role in that.
yeah.
You know why I'm here today?
Like, I think he's one of the guys with Cusack. I think he's one of Cusack's boys in
Yes,
that.
yes.
I'm here.
And this is where we find out that he brought a gun to school.
Yeah.
Found a gun in the locker.
Which I would say this is the climax of the movie, I think.
Why'd you have a gun in your locker?
I think so. Yeah, I think so.
I tried.
Despite that, what the scenes that the next scene is. This I think is the most.
Yep.
Trunk on. It's the light's supposed to go on. It can go on. I mean,
Yeah, it's powerful. And how he shifts from being in pain to then kind of smiling and laughing when he realizes, yeah, it was kind of crazy that
That's a hard transition.
a locker, the flare gun went off and it burned the elephant up. And they're laughing at him, and so
To do it sincerely too, to make that switch, that emotional switch as an actor,
yeah,
and to do it without like looking fake.
yeah.
I've always noticed that,
still only a B.
and I can actually get that.
Brian.
That the actually perfect.
Yep, they're laughing at the.
Here it comes in just a second. I think it's the next time.
It is kind of funny.
to make the switch. And you believe him. You believe
Yeah.
that face that he just made. I
Yeah.
know it's just a small, subtle little thing, but you believe him in the moment.
I mean, that's the richness of. I mean, that emotions aren't all rage or all happy. It's all. It moves. It shifts.
Sometimes
you can
it's
have
a
both.
mixture of
Yeah,
happy
yeah.
and sadness.
Nothing.
And we find out why she came.
She didn't. She wasn't supposed to be there.
She didn't have anywhere else to go.
Yeah. And
So
you pick
she'll-
that up from her car ride because she literally gets out of the car, stops, and then gets ready to like lean forward to her mom's window, and they just drive off.
Yeah.
Which is, let's go to the final scene here. The final sequence of the film. Where she meets him in the closet and they have their moment.
And the gang puts the brain up to writing their essay.
Yeah, which is not 1,000 words. I'm
No.
sorry, it's not.
Thank you
It's
very
gotta
much,
be like
Mr.
a
Teacher.
paragraph. Did someone check him for plagiarism? Yeah. See if he plagiarized it.
I have a problem with this scene.
Okay.
And it's that they take this basket case that has all this hair and clothing and darkness on her makeup stuff, and Claire takes her back and does her little quick beauty makeover, and it's like all of a sudden now it's like the ugly duckling into the beautiful swan, and she says, this is the look on his face, and she says thank you kind of stuff. But is the message it is sending, especially to girls, is you have to be pretty to be accepted. And I don't know if that's the message, but it's kind of...
I think, I get what you're saying. Yeah, I think because of sort of how it's portrayed in the 80s, that it does come off a little bit like, oh, now that you have this makeup and these clothes, you are pretty. But I think what he was attempting to show is that everyone is beautiful on the inside. And it's just, sometimes it just takes to see you in the right light.
Yeah.
Which is happening in two separate scenes right now. With him and her. And what does he say? Something about, aren't you trying to like rub your parents the wrong way? And wouldn't I be outstanding in
I
that
would be
capacity?
outstanding. You date me.
Maybe
I
outstanding
will
in that
help
capacity.
you individuate.
Yeah. And Sheedy's so good with her facial expressions.
Yeah.
Like, it's all in the eyes, but she shows you that she's a little mentally like, yeah, I'm a little different because, she's a loner.
And they probably wind up married. She's the one that says to him, she has him nailed down. You can't think for yourself. Mm-hmm. She knows him. She watches. She pays attention.
Oh, she has them all nailed.
Yeah. I just wrote a winning essay.
I still feel bad for him because he doesn't get anything out of this.
Yeah. And they all talk to the janitor, which was
On the way out.
Yeah.
Which they don't, which I pointed on the way in, they don't. He says, what's up to Brian? And Brian looks down at the desk.
Yeah, but I think he's a different person now. And next Saturday, Judd Nelson will be back for another, and Ali Sheedy will probably be there because she has nothing else to do.
No, she'll be at her boyfriend's wrestling meet.
Yeah, that's true. And that's John Hughes right there in the car. I
didn't think of the word either.
Yeah,
Credited.
uncredited. There you go.
And just as powerful as the opening sequence here. And one of my favorite endings to movie at all. Mm-hmm. She took his badge. She stole his badge. Mm-hmm. Proving that she still is a bit of her old character.
Yeah. You don't change, you grow, I guess.
Yes.
And then now that is they talk about this, these earrings, That's probably $1,100, $1,200.
Why do you say that? Because of the size of it?
Yeah.
I don't know anything about diamonds.
Yeah,
Might as well be an ice cube to me.
yeah.
There's a really subtle thing right here if you watch. Watch. She pulls away from him pretty quickly.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to just give you whatever you want type deal. It's just little subtleties in there. And I feel like I picked up a bunch of those just watching it. And now it makes me want to watch it again. Which this might be the worst episode of Rotten Potatoes ever because I keep just watching the movie and not talking.
Yeah. But it's a good one. It is a universal movie. You will see school, you will see, it's different. And the clicks will change. But the reality of balancing home and school, and this is where they read the voiceover of the essay.
Well, the second half of it.
Yeah. We are all an athlete.
I will say this. The principal kind of disappears midway.
Yeah.
And it just sort of unceremoniously ends for him. He
As
doesn't
it
even tell them to leave.
As it should.
They just
Yeah.
walk out of the building on their own.
Yep. And then the song, closing.
Hey, 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 hey. Ooh. Freeze frame.
Yeah. Don't forget about me. When you come back to school on Monday, don't forget about me. Don't forget
Yes.
what you learned
Don't
this
you
week.
call my name.
Yeah.
Hmm.
It is a Criterion collection, which is reserved for considered to be the best films ever made. And I think this is certainly John Hughes' best film.
Yeah.
I love Uncle Buck. I
It's
love
my
Planes,
favorite.
Trains, but this one is, it means something. It's about something. Last time we talked about Dawn of the Dead. It's not just a horror movie. It's about something. It teaches us about life. This is about things. You're a better human watching this show.
Yeah, I think it also says I think that just because you are the way you are now doesn't mean you can't grow and you can't be who you want to be and change yourself as well.
Exactly.
It's one of those movies. I put it in I won't say it's not a perfect movie because it's just it's got some dated sensibilities, but I think you put it in the category with the perfect movies because of what it offers you in commentary and in entertainment wise.
It's hard to believe it's as old as it is.
85. It's a year older than I am. What would you rate it on a scale of 1 to 10?
I'd give it a 9.
Yeah, I'd give it like a 9.5, 9.4, somewhere like that.
Yeah.
I'm higher. I got a higher score.
There's a whole genre of youth films and things like Porky's and this kind of stuff. This really is these coming of age films. This is a group coming of age, and this is something that I think you could use in a classroom if you certainly have to edit certain things, but for kids, getting kids to talk about what is it like in your school and how you're how we are different, but how we're also under the skin, we're also the same.
Yeah, it's I put it in there with, like you say, Porky's, but I put it more in line with like Dazed and Confused or Fast Times at Ridgemont High. Maybe more Dazed and Confused because that's sort of like a cathartic one-day coming-of-age tale for a group of people, similar to this, but that's not quite up to the same par as this film is.
Yeah.
Is John Hughes still making movies?
No, he died. He went for a walk in Chicago, was there with his family, and had a heart attack. Yeah,
When was this?
It was. I mean, it's like he's been dead for about a decade. Yep.
I didn't know it.
Yeah. Yeah. He had a rich. When you look at his filmography, it's like wow. I mean,
He owned the 80s, man.
yeah. Oh yeah.
Did he do St. Elmo's Fire too? Mm-mm. No, but that one's so adjacent to Brat Pack that it's got a lot of them in it.
Yeah. 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 This is. What do you think?
He beat me to it. What do you think?
I'm glad. I wish I would have thought of that.
But what character? I want to know what character people see themselves in, and did it change at the beginning or change at the end? If you're watching it, I guarantee you everybody does the same thing. They see the people and like, who am I? At the end, does it change at all? Did
Yeah.
it change your idea of what?
And people
that
you
is?
don't like necessarily at the beginning, at the end, are you more enamored with them? Do you understand them? Knowing what they were going through at home and knowing what the pressures that some of it was self-imposed pressure and some of it was pressure put by their parents, does that make them more sympathetic to you? So
Yeah, and
this is a movie to watch and talk. Just
Yes.
talk with
I
people.
think that at the end of the film too, that you should be in a good place with all the characters. Whether you are or aren't at the beginning, you should, even the principal, the janitor, all of them, you should be at some sort of peace with them all, because they all go through their sort of catharsis in there at some point or other. Maybe not Carl, but I think he's more so like the plot device to move the story along. He offers advice. He's the sage wisdom.
Right. And he's as an adult, he's more sympathetic. I do think the principal in the end, that sigh changed everything.
Absolutely.
That's kind of like, okay, why did I do this? Why did I square off with Bender? I know better than
I made
this.
it worse.
Yes.
I had to be
Yes.
the issue there.
This
not
is
him.
a kid.
He's a
This is a
child.
kid, and who knows what's going on. And that's if there's a moral to this story, you never know when somebody puts their head on their pillow at night what they're going through.
Mm-hmm.
You don't know the demons that they're fighting. You don't know what they're facing at home, whether it's abuse or neglect or poverty or drugs or whatever. You just don't know about that. And so cut people some slack. Cut people some, and give
Yeah.
a little kindness and understanding.
Pay it forward.
Amen.
Movie reference. Had to do both.
Well, we will see you back here soon for another movie.
Well, yeah. Suggestions.
Oh, yes.
If you have suggestions for the next deep,
Movie that everybody should see.
is it going to be? Is it going to be Braveheart? Is it going to be Alien? Is it going to be, I don't know, Cinema Paradiso? Is it going to be Citizen? I'm just kidding.
Hey.
I wouldn't subject you two through that, but what can I say?
All right. You gonna put some glasses on?
Well,
You
at
got-
the end, I will.
you got something to
Make
say?
sure you drop a like and a subscribe. Check us out on TikTok, and I said like and subscribe. And anything else?
Cards and letters.
Yeah. I guess we'll see them at the movies.
We will.
Hold on.